everybody. It's Angie Rupert, founder of Rupert Law Group. We handle exclusively E2 and E1 visas. So no matter what treaty country you're from or in what state you want to be, we can help. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the E2 renewal. What is needed at the renewal, right? A big question. Even for those who haven't yet applied for the E2 visa, it's something that we hear a lot. They want to know what do we need upon renewal, right? So let's start a little bit about when is renewal, right? When do we renew this visa or status? So that will depend a lot on your passport and where you applied for the visa or status in the first place. So no matter where your passport's from, if you apply through USCIS to change status, meaning you don't go to the consulate or embassy, you come to the United States on one visa, and then you change your status to E2 status through paperwork through USCIS, it will likely be good for about 2 years, okay? Always, always, always check your paperwork. But generally speaking, it's going to be 2 years from when you're approved until you need to renew. All right. Now, let's say you go to a U.S. consulate or embassy. Well, that really depends on your passport. So, E2 visas are issued based on the treaty that the United States has with your country. And so they are going to vary between 3 months, as in Egypt, Jordan, some others, all the way to 5 years, Canada, the UK, and others. Okay. And everybody else is somewhere in the middle. Now, let's talk a little bit about that timing. So, when you say, oh, okay, I'm an Egyptian citizen and I want to get an E2 visa, it's good for 3 months? And the answer is yes. But let's talk a little bit about that. What that means is you go to the consulate on January 1st and get approved in Egypt. Then you get your visa about a week later, and it's going to be good for about 90 days. Okay. During that time, you must enter the United States with that visa. Once you get here, you will usually be able to stay for 2 additional years, right? That's your I-94 date. Now, that whole situation is a little bit confusing and weird, and that's probably a topic for another video. But you're going to, so long story short, you're going to need to renew this about every 2 to 5 years, again, depending on where your passport is from, okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about what they expect at renewal. So first of all, even according to the statutes, the regulations, you will really need to prove that this business meets all of the requirements. You're making money, you've got employees, you're doing it after 5 years. So sometimes, depending on where your passport's from, you're going to have to renew before that 5 years. Now, we always want to see positive movement when it comes to revenues and employees, but you may not have to be quite to the same level that you should be after 5 years. Okay. So let's talk about a renewal that happens before 5 years. What are they looking for? It's going to always be essentially the same things. But a lot of times business is wild, right? Things happen that maybe you didn't anticipate. Shifts in the business, shifts in ownership, that kind of thing. So one of the things to keep in mind is they want to see that the business you applied with is still the business that you're running. They're looking for the name of the LLC. They're looking for the EIN number of that business, and they want to make sure that those are the same. Okay. They want to know if there has been a change in ownership. Well, when I first applied, I owned 90%. Now I own 80% because somebody bought 10% of the shares a year ago or something like that. They want to see the documentation of that. They want to know how it was originally and how it is now to make sure that you still meet that requirement. Okay. They're also going to want to know, have you had a change in a business model? Now, we get into something called a substantive change. Sometimes the consulates and embassies or USCIS will require that you apply and ask permission before you change the type of business that you're operating under the LLC or C Corp, right? So that's another topic for another discussion, but they may want to know something like that. They're also going to want to know about your revenues. So yes, you should be filing your taxes on time, of course, for your entity, right? They'll usually want to see the last 2 years worth of tax returns, the last 2 years worth of W-2s and 1099s. W-2s and 1099s are for employees and contractors. So always remember, whenever you are renewing, that you need to show that you're meeting not only the specific requirements of the E2, but you're meeting the spirit of the E2, which is investment in the United States and hiring U.S. employees, which includes U.S. citizens and U.S. green card holders. Those are the types of things that they want to see, all right? So keep that in mind. And so that's for a short renewal, right? If you're from a country like, what's a country like this? If you're from a country from like the Netherlands, you're not going to have 5 years before you renew. So you're going to have to renew before that time. So these are some things that you want to include, okay? Now, what if you go to your interview or what if you do the renewal and it's been 5 years? Now they really want to see that that business is working. It's not marginal, right? You have revenues that you're able to pay yourself. You're able to pay employees. You're in the black, right? So generally speaking, when you go to that renewal, they're going to want to see 2 to 3 years worth of tax returns. Again, the 1099s and W-2s. Now you may say, well, how many employees do we need? As many as the business needs, or we usually recommend about 5 employees, whichever is more. So if you have a restaurant, you're likely going to need way more than 5, right? Because that's by the very nature of the restaurant, okay? But if you have maybe an accounting company, maybe you'll only need 5 people, right? And maybe 1 or 2 of them will be part-time, and then the others will all be full-time. But we want to see that you are employing people, you are paying people. You also need to make enough to pay yourself. So keep that in mind, okay? Now, there is a possibility when you go for this renewal that they could waive the interview. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be a dream? And it does happen. What they're looking for is something that is easy to say, oh, I see. This business is operational. It's working. They've got employees. They're making money. They're in great shape. We don't need to see them again this time. That's always the goal, right? Now, sometimes you still have to go for an interview. It really depends a lot on the country. It depends a lot on the business, different factors. So don't count on it either way, but it is a possibility. And of course, that's what we're always hoping for, right? So with those things in mind, this is a way for you, if you already have an E2 and you're getting ready to renew, or if you don't have an E2 yet, but you're thinking, geez, I don't want to bite off more than I can chew here. Hopefully you got some information about what it is that they're looking for upon E2 visa renewal. Of course, as always, if you have any questions about the E2 or an E2 renewal, please feel free to reach out anytime. We would be thrilled to speak with you about your E2 visa.